don't want to give anybody the wrong opinion and to think that we're like some kind of super Christians, because we're not. We are just normal human beings who heard a call and answered it. And, I think sometimes people look at our lives and like, oh, you're the super Christians because you moved to Africa, and oh, you're, serving the poor and you're looking after all these children, and that's amazing. I could never do something like that. And it's just not true. We're just normal people who said yes, and we got to go on this adventure. It goes from taking that first step of journey to adventure, and that's really where we are. One of the things that we've struggled with over the last few years, and when we've had people come and visit us on these 11-day service trips, is people from North America want to come and fix it. We want to fix everything. And I'm a fixer. Ian is a fixer. So there's a sense that, we're going to go to Africa and fix it. And we can't. And it's not our place. Africa is not fixable. Africa is a continent. We are now in the country of Eswatini and serving here, but we can't fix Eswatini either. But what we can do is try to help one person or help two people. And it's like the starfish story. I think everyone's heard it by now. The child that's throwing the starfish back into the ocean, and someone says, well, why are you doing this? Well, what difference does it make? Well, it makes a difference to that one and to that one. So I want to tell you a little story about one of the starfish, one of our children who really has had a huge impact on my life. And it was a story that it's a story that I tell, but it's kind of a crazy story. So try to follow me on this one because it's a little bit complicated. So I got a call one day from a doctor, and he said, please come and help this child. She's almost 2 years old, and our cutoff is 2-year-old. So I said, well, what's the situation? He said, well, her arm has been broken many times by a family member. It looks like they've twisted her arm, and then they've put it in a cast, it's healed, and then 6 months later she comes back and it's broken again, and they put it in a cast. Well, this time, he said, they've broken her femur and her tibia. And he said, I don't know how you do that with the child, unless maybe her leg was out straight, maybe on a rock or something, and they jumped on her leg. He couldn't figure out how that could happen. But she had this broken leg, and the government hospital was refusing any treatment until they had found a place of safety, until there was somewhere that this child could go back and get proper care. So he said, please see this child. I said, well, we've never dealt with a case like that. I'm not sure that we can deal with a child who's been abused like that. I don't know what I would do with a child with two breaks in her leg. And so, but let me come and assess. So normally when I go and pick up a child, or if I'm called to the police station or the hospital, I always take someone with me. I always take a diaper bag. I'm prepared. I have a Swazi staff with me so that they can speak Siswati to the child and comfort that child. But this time I wasn't taking anyone because I wasn't going to pick up a child. I was just going to assess the situation. So for today, I'm going to call this child Sebe. I'm not going to give you her real name just to protect her identity. So Sebe, I get to the hospital, and she was the saddest little girl I've ever seen. And she had a tensor bandage wrapped around her leg. That was all they were able to give her, and they were giving her basically aspirin for the pain, with a broken femur and a broken tibia. So I asked what the situation was. They explained everything that I have just shared with you. They think it was the grandfather, but the mother was mentally disabled and she was a teenager. So they said there was nothing that they could do. The child needed to be placed in a place of safety. So I called a social worker that I know, which was about an hour's drive away, and I explained the situation to her because all the children come to us through social welfare. And she said, well, bring the file to me, bring the x-rays, and let's go and see a magistrate judge, and let's get a court order. And I said, I don't want a court order here because we need to help this child, but I don't know that I can take this child. And the doctor is begging me. I've worked well with him before. He's begging me, please help the child. So we call a hospital, a private hospital in town, and ask if they're the only orthopedic surgeon can see the child that day. He says yes. So I start on this journey, a journey that I wasn't planning on going on, but I knew that I could help, and I knew I had to help. So I drive an hour, I take the x-rays with me, I go into the magistrate judge, I tell him the story, I have the social worker with me, and he says, absolutely, I will give you a court order to place the child with me, so that we can go and get surgery. Of course, the judge's secretary had just left and there was no one to type, so I typed out the court order. His printer was broken, so I had to drive to town with a thumb drive and get it printed, had to drive back to the court, have him stamp it. Well, now I don't have anybody with me. So I go back to the hospital, pick up the young mother and this very broken, terrified child, put them in the backseat of my car, and I start driving to town. On the side of the road, I meet some of my team, and my team is there to put another staff in my car, take this child, and actually bring food for the child, bring clothing. And I'm now 6 hours into this day that just was not turning out the way that I thought it would. I kept looking back at her, and she just looked so scared. 2 years old, had no idea what was happening, and the pain she must have been in would have been just horrific. Well, we got to the hospital in town, which was another hour, another direction. We met with the pediatric surgeon, orthopedic surgeon, and he showed us another x-ray that he had taken. And he said, this child has been terribly abused. With a broken leg like this, and broken, he could see the scars on her arm. He could see where the breaks were. And he said, what are you going to do with this child? And I said, well, I have a court order that has placed this child with me. So now I'm her mother. Now I can speak for her. I asked, what is surgery like this going to cost? And it was around $10,000 US. Well, I didn't have $10,000 US, and he was going to do surgery right then. And so I prayed about it, and the volunteer who was with me, who is not a person of wealth, she said, I'll give you the money. And I looked at her, I said, you have $10,000? And she said, I don't have $10,000, but I will find $10,000. And so she committed on the spot to pay for the surgery for this child. So the surgery happened, and I asked the doctor, while you're in surgery, can you please also check and see, if she's been abused in any other way? And he said he would do that. And it was just such a tragic situation. And so she finally came home to us, and she's been with us for several years now. It took a long time for her to heal, her physical healing. And she was scared of men, scared of women, scared of everyone, just like a skittish cat. But now she's filled with joy, and she's filled with hope. And she's a very simple girl. I think that the damage that was done to her was very long lasting, and but she's joy. She's happy. And the reason I tell you that story, and the reason I'm standing here amongst sheep and goats on Project Canaan, which is the place that we now live, is because it reminds me of the story in the Bible, the story of the sheep and the goats. And I encourage you to look it up and read it, because God talks about when he comes back, and he's going to ask people what they did. What did you do for the people who were hungry? When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was sick, you helped me. When I was in prison, you came and visited me. And when I think of this little girl, Sebe, she was kind of all of those things. She was hungry, she was sick, she was in prison, being stuck at 2 years old in a homestead where she was being abused daily. She was all of those things. And he says, what did you do for the least of them? And Sebe is the least of them. And I was able to help that day one child. I was able to help Sebe because I was here. I can't fix Sebe's situation. I can't fix her homestead. I can push the police to try to do further investigation. I can't change the laws, but I could help one child that day. When I read about the sheep and the goats, I am reminded that I am going to be standing before the throne of God one day, and he is going to ask me, what did I do? And as I started this, I'm not a perfect Christian. My husband is not a perfect Christian. Well, he might be more so than I am, but we're still broken people. We're sinful people, but we're trying to do what God is calling us to do. And so I know that I want to do what I can on this earth. If I see someone who's hungry, can I feed them? If I have the ability to feed them, I want to do that. And in Sebe's case, we could do so many things to help that one child. And I encourage you, as you are listening to this and as you're stepping out in faith, and even if you're an 85-year-old who's been a Christian your whole life, look around you, look around your environment, look in your backyard, in your church, in your local community. Who needs help? Who needs clothing? Who's in prison? And prison doesn't necessarily just mean like behind bars. people who are locked in or shut in. You know, COVID-19 has wreaked havoc on the world. Who is someone that needs a friend? Who is someone that you can call? Who is someone that is sick in the hospital or sick at home and needs someone to come and visit? You know someone that you could help. And maybe if you reach out to them, you can be Jesus to them. You can be that person like I was to Sebe, who said, I have the wherewithal. I don't know where I'm going to get the money. I don't have any help right now, but it was the right thing to do. So I just encourage you, do something today that will help someone else. And I promise you, your life will be blessed. My life has been blessed by this little girl, Sebe. And every time I see her, she waves and she runs up and she gives me a big hug. She knows that she's loved. She knows that she's safe. I know that I'm loved. I know that I'm safe. And I hope that you feel the same way today too.